Hey guys, so today we're going to be reviewing Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. I know it's been out for about a week now, but here at Spartan Vision, we like to finish the game before we make a review. Just putting that out there. Alright, but the first thing we're going to talk about here is graphics. Alright, we're going to break this down, the good, the bad, everything. So let's talk about graphics first, alright? And I'll show you, this is just kind of exploring around the world, kind of in free roam, if that's what you want to call it, in the open world. And it looks fine. It looks like a normal game. The same thing goes for combat. It doesn't look great. It doesn't look terrible. It looks fine. It's acceptable. But what I really want to talk about is more of the cutscenes, because there's a lot of cutscenes in this game. We'll talk about that more later. But there's a lot of just huge disparity between two different cutscenes. And I'll show you an example of that here. So in this cutscene, pay particular attention to just the lighting of it, the character models, right? And particularly the ground textures, along with some of just the other, generic textures, look so good in this cutscene. And I'm not saying this is the only one. There's probably 4 or 5 cutscenes that have this level of quality and throughout the game. But let's flip to another cutscene from earlier in the game. And what I want you to focus on here is particularly, like I said again, the ground textures. Even, some parts of the character model, just things aren't as detailed, and it doesn't look terrible, but there's just such a big difference between some of the cutscenes, and especially some of the later cutscenes towards the end of the game. They wanted the ending to have a big presence in all of their cutscenes, right? So you put that budget into those cutscenes, and you can really tell the difference, and that's just something that stuck out with graphics, but other than that, the game looks great. So the next section is performance, and this is going to be a rather short section. I only have one thing to talk about here, and that's the frame rate. Now, while other reviews have said that it runs fine on, PlayStation, Xbox, PC, all that stuff, I'm playing on an Xbox One X, and of course, for review purposes, I could never get it to replicate, even trying to push the game. So, when I wanted it to happen, I couldn't get it to happen. But I had multiple instances, like over 10 in the game, where my frame rate would drop, and I'm talking to 5. The game was practically frozen almost, when just you have multiple things going on, doing multiple attacks at the same time, and multiple enemies and everything going on the screen. The frame rate would suffer really bad for just a short amount of time, and then of course it would fix itself. That's just something that I wanted to point out, because I haven't heard anybody else talk about it. I don't know if there's something wrong with my Xbox, but that's the problem I had. So next we're going to talk about story, and this can be another short one, because I've seen this story before, watched it, played it before, and it would be interesting to see what somebody thought who doesn't know the story, from their perspective, what they thought of it. But I don't have a problem with it. My only concern with it is as far as future DLC goes, because they totally could have gone further than the Buu Saga. They could have continued into Super and pushed on through that and just put more content in the game. Not saying that it's not long enough, it's around 25 hours, but they could have gone further. They chose to stop here. I know not everybody loves Super, but it would have been nice just to continue that way for the people who do like it. And, it'll probably be DLC down the road and cost however much they're going to charge for it, but there's no reason. Super's been out long enough to where they could have added it onto this game, and it would have just tied it in further, because personally, I don't think the Buu Saga is the best way to end this game. I don't really like the Buu Saga. I think that's the worst out of the 4 sagas we played, but that's just my opinion. Some people love the Buu Saga, and it's a perfect way to end the game. But that's just my little piece on the story. So next is the part that everybody cares about, and that's gameplay. And we're going to be here a while, because I have a lot to say about this. But I want to start with something that they did absolutely excellent, and that's what I'm going to call the buddy system, or the party system, whatever you want to call it. So you can battle with up to 2 friends, party members, AI, not online players. But, for a majority of the game, they have a fixed set of players that you can only play as them, and you can't choose between who you want to play as, and we'll get to more of that later. But this works so well, just that you have teammates that can assist you in combat, and the way you activate them to assist you doesn't take you out of it, right? It's just a simple 2-button press to activate them. It lets them do their move, it helps you out, and then you continue fighting. You know, it's not such a cumbersome menu system to where it's just going to draw from my fighting. I'm not going to bother with it, right? And then they have the special attack, which is what you just saw. And I wish that did more damage. You know, it's flashy, it looks cool, but I feel like for everything that's going on in those attacks, it just doesn't do what it should. That's just my opinion on that little buddy system right there. I like that a lot. I think that's one of the best aspects of the combat. But let me talk about the part of the combat that I'm really iffy on still after finishing the game. Okay, and you guys let me know what you think of the combat system down below. What I'm particularly talking about is the combo kind of system. That's what you want to call it. Not the special moves. Those are all good. They're solid moves. But the actual comboing in this game. So, you know, I don't have any super early gameplay, but I believe it was my Fallen Order review where I talk about how I didn't like the combat early on, just because it was really simple. You didn't really have any force abilities, and on those lower difficulties, it was just too plain and simple. Well, this game kinda has the same problem. You mash one button to attack, and then you have a finisher button, you know, A, X, Y, or B, depending on what you're playing on. And so what this does basically is it allows you to vary up the combat a little bit, but not as much as I would have liked it. Right? So if you press B at the end of your combo, it knocks them away. X is a key blast, it'll knock them away. Y will charge up your energy and knock them away, and A will do a follow-up that keeps you close. So it's not like there's no depth to the combat system, it's just the initial spamming B to do a majority of your combat. Gets a little tiresome, but I mean, like I said, as you push further on, probably past the 3-ish hour mark, and you learn how to combo that with other moves, it kind of gets pushed to the side. You kind of forget about it. Now, like I said, it could have been better. It could have been a lot cooler with more combos, with more depth to it for people to get really good at it or really bad at it. But they keep it plain simple, and I think that's just to keep the reach really wide on the game. But other than that, the combat just throughout the game is solid, except for more that we'll break down later in the video. But I want to talk about transformations for a little bit, Super Saiyan and all of that. The game has a really complex tree, and complex in a way they don't explain it to you, but complex tree and palette of moves and abilities and transformations that each character has a different set for, different abilities. Some crossover between characters, but some have their unique aspects to it. And this works really well. They found a good way to balance it with it draining your ki and it being easy enough to recharge, but having it just be another system that you have to manage while fighting. So that keeps that at least a little bit interesting. Also, it's probably going to be the only time you see me use Super Saiyan 3, because fun fact, I despise Super Saiyan 3. But that's beside the point. The main thing I want to touch on for the last bit of combat is the difficulty. That's the one thing that this game really needed, would have been a difficulty setting. That would have pushed this game up an extra point or two, right? Because right now, the difficulty settings, if it was on a scale of 1 to 10, is probably at about a 6, I would say. You know, if you have no level of competency, then yes, this game will be difficult. But as long as you have a reaction time of under 19 minutes and can press A fast enough, you're fine. And I think the ability to either turn that difficulty up a little bit, maybe if it's at 6 to like a 7.5, 8 range, or just a higher difficulty in general, would have made the game a lot, not necessarily more fun, because people would have got mad if it was too hard, but just more of what I wanted, I guess. Because personally, I don't think you should be beating Frieza on your first try. You shouldn't beat Boo. You shouldn't beat Cell. You shouldn't be beating all of these big name villains on your first try. The only way to get the difficulty in this game to where I like it is to go into a fight 5 to 10 levels under level. They have some events, I guess you can call them, throughout the open world of just enemy bosses that you can fight. And you go to them and they progressively get harder throughout these bosses. And, you know, towards the end of the game, the bosses were at level 85. around that range, and I was going in with 3 level 75 characters, and that's the only way to really make it somewhat difficult, to where you have to actually strain yourself in combat. But that's just me. I mean, I'm sure there's people who thought this was the hardest game ever. That's how everything is. But that's just something I wanted to bring up. The game isn't difficult enough for my liking. But now we're going to talk about all the problems, because there's some problems. So I want to talk about kind of the way this game was put together. It seems like, just from playing it, that they really knew how to make fighting games, and they wanted to make a good Dragon Ball Z game, but they felt the urge to make it open world and didn't know how to handle that. And let me show you the main problem with this game's open world system. So this is the map, okay? These are all of the locations on the map. And the problem here is that for a majority of the side missions, which are all of those blue things, you go to load into the location, which we'll talk about the loading screens later. You go load into a location. Once you've loaded in, you fly to this person, talk to them. Once you've talked to them, they tell you to go to a different location. So now you've gone through one loading screen, flew with somebody, to go through another loading screen now. Then that person tells you to talk to another person in a different area, and then you gotta go back to the original person that gave you the quest in the first place. And main missions don't have as big of a problem with this. It's definitely there for some missions, but it's mainly side missions. You know, they're optional. I don't really want to do them. It's just fetch quests, but I'm doing them because I'm a completionist when it comes to this type of stuff. And so just the fact that it's making you sit and sit and sit through all these loading screens just to, you know, go pick up some apples or something, it gets tedious. But by far, the worst part of this game, the biggest crime this game commits, is that I'm pretty sure the developers, or whoever made the tutorial, kind of just forgot about half the game. Because they don't tell you so much stuff that is so important to, like, the main factors of the game. It's ridiculous. Alright, I'm just going to throw some menus up in the background when I talk about this, because I'm ranting, alright? They don't tell you about the skill tree, or at least if they did, don't remember it. I'm pretty sure they do teach you how to equip skills, so that's a plus. They don't really teach you about health potions, or equipping them, or how to use them, or any of that. You gotta figure all that out on your own. I had to look it up and figure it out on my own. It's ridiculous. They don't really teach you... They don't teach you much, alright? They kind of tell you how to punch stuff, and that's about it. You gotta figure the rest out. The only good menu this game has is the community board. Let me tell you, they need to make this a game itself. I'll play this all day. I'll play this so long. You just get gifts. You give people gifts. You level them up, and then whenever you level them up, you get these rewards over here on the right. Alright, and let me tell you, it doesn't sound fun from just looking at it, but this was very fun. This might have been the best part of the game, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a big fan of this community board system they got going here. Alright, I just wanted to put that out there. All the other menus, like the cooking... Actually, you know what, let's talk about the cooking, okay? So the cooking, if you actually, like, try to cook in this game and break it down and look at some of the effects, the cooking makes absolutely no sense, not from a cooking standpoint, but from a gameplay standpoint. This game is too easy to need to cook ever. There's no point in this game where I cooked because I needed to. I literally did it because it's in the game, and I was like, guess I'll see if it works. It's ridiculous. Some of these things give you like plus 500% health, or some ridiculous stuff like that. Alright? And the system's good. It's not a bad system. It works well. It's ridiculous, some of the gathering you have to do for the materials. I'm playing a Dragon Ball game and not survival game, but whatever. That's fine. My point is, a lot of it works really well, and a lot of it doesn't work at all. There's no in between. All right, we're done with the menu rant. I wanna talk about something I skipped over in the gameplay part that I thought would be better suited here, and that is kind of the quote RPG system they have going. All right, so certain enemies are certain levels, and you level up as you play, and you know all that great RPG stuff, right? So, problem with this is that if you look at other RPG games, even ones that aren't so great, they have a basic scaling system that makes sense, right? So if you're level 15, you can only fight level like 15 to 20 enemies, otherwise you get smacked, okay? Well, the problem with this game, one, is that as long as you're semi-competent, you can fight enemies that are at least 10 levels higher than you with a group of 3 people. That's the first problem. But the main problem I want to talk about is they need to make a Dragon Ball Z game where you actually train. And I don't mean they have a training thing here, but there's like 4 or 5, I think 6 maybe, training things, and it all, depends on you going around and gathering fetch quest stuff. But I want a game where you need to actually train to progress and get stronger. What this game does, if you haven't played it, and if you haven't noticed it, is, so this is going to be a spoiler if you haven't seen Dragon Ball Z in the past 20 years, Goku dies. Alright, everybody knows that. So when Goku dies, doesn't matter which time, just pick one. Okay? You're playing as the other characters. Okay? And you're leveling them up, like you play as Gohan, Vegeta, Piccolo. You're leveling up because you're playing as them. That makes sense. So in the beginning of the game, you're thinking, okay, well, Goku's going to come back, and I'll need to level him up, grind a little bit as him, get him strong, I can practice more, get better at the game. No. What happens is, Goku comes back, and I'm just using Goku as an example, this happens for every character. Goku comes back, and it just says, Goku, plus 3.4 trillion XP. And then you're the same level as everybody else. So there's no reason to do side missions, there's no reason to train, there's no reason to do any of the side content at all, because the game just gives you XP if you're not high enough level to bring you to the right level. Which I don't understand from a gameplay point, I don't understand from a development point. That's just adding runtime to your game. Why would you not want that? It does not make sense to me why they just give you millions of XP at one time. It's ridiculous. But that reminded me of the other thing I want to talk about. This has nothing to do with the game at all, because they just follow the storyline put out by the show and all that. Why is this game, or Dragon Ball at all, focused around Goku, when literally Goku is not even in a majority of this game? You play as Gohan more than you play as Goku. Like, I don't have the numbers broken down, but I could almost guarantee you play as Gohan more. Because, think about it, Goku, you start out as him, right? Raditz comes, you're fucking dead. Alright? Then you play as Gohan, you play as Piccolo, you play as, well, not Vegeta yet, but later. Then Vegeta comes and gets injured, and then Namek gets injured, and then Cell dies, and then he's just dying or injured constantly. You don't get to play as him. It's ridiculous, and I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but you do not play as Goku for a large chunk of this game. I would say you play as Gohan more, and Vegeta's kind of close, and Piccolo's up there, but that's just, a nitpick that I wanted to make. So overall, right, let's just close this out, give it an overall rating. And so we'll start from 10. Alright, we're starting at the very top, with kind of the not broken, but uninformed menu system they give you, combined with kind of, the small performance issues, with just some of the other inconveniences in the game. There's no big glaring problems, right? There's nothing that ruins the game. There's just inconveniences that could have made it better. So we're gonna put this game at a 7 out of 10. Alright, we don't do decimals here. It's a 7 out of 10. Alright? If you are just starting the game, or just confused in the game, I made a tips video 4 days ago, however long that was, and it has just some of the basic health potions, all that stuff in there to help you out. I can make more if you guys like that kind of content. As far as the end game goes, I guess we'll talk about this here at the end, because it's fitting. It's not that much. It's more fetch quests like every other mission. They got a couple of boss fights that are worth your time. But overall, this game, it was solid. The fighting's fun, that's all that matters, basically. That's all I have to say here. Let me know what you guys thought of the game. Remember to like and subscribe. Comment what your favorite fight was in the game, alright? Mine was the Gohan Cell fight, alright? Frieza Goku was a close second. But let me know what your favorite fight was. And that's all I have to say. See you.